critical moment in India's history. It now has the world's largest population and one of the youngest.
The broad story of Indian growth, development, poverty is one of improvements, sustained improvements over time, and in fact improvements that have accelerated in the last 15 years or so.
India might become the next big power, surpassing China. When big countries compete, even a small slip can lead to a big fall, and China is losing ground fast. India is full of energy, but faces many big challenges. To start, India's infrastructure development is in desperate need of acceleration. According to the World Bank, India's infrastructure investment needs to be around 8.8% of its GDP, or roughly $343 billion annually. But currently, it hovers just around 5.2% of GDP. Imagine hosting the party of the century in a house that's falling apart. First, you need a serious fixer-upper. Then, there's the massive task of urbanizing its economy. With about 34% of India's population living in urban areas compared to China's 60%, the shift from rural to urban setting is a monumental task requiring infrastructure and systemic socio-economic transformations. And the struggle of attracting foreign investment? India drew around $83 billion in foreign direct investment. In 2024, a commendable figure indeed, but when you stack it up against China's $113 billion in the same year, the gap is stark. India is that friend who's always trying to redefine themselves to attract more attention, and hopefully, more money. Now let's talk about the Modi factor. Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister, is zealously funneling funds into infrastructure projects, with an allocation of over $1.4 trillion under the National Infrastructure Pipeline, which aims to pump money into over 7,000 projects across the country. The goal? Make India irresistible to foreign investors. And yes, every forward-thinking company globally is now sporting what they call an India strategy. The pivot isn't just fashionable, it's practically a survival tactic as they diversify away from China amidst rising geopolitical tensions and the quest for risk mitigation. Over 200 of the Fortune Global 500 companies have set up R&D centers in India, all eager to tap into the local talent pool and market potential. But let's not sugarcoat it. India's economic growth rate, which needs to hover around 8% to 10% annually to keep up with employment demands and infrastructural growth, is currently wading through the waters at about 6% to 7%. It's akin to that underachieving cousin who's brilliant but can't seem to get out of bed. India is like that underdog in the movies. You know, the one everyone roots for but isn't quite sure will win. Now, to snatch the economic growth crown from China's well-worn head, India's got to pump those numbers up to dizzying heights. Think 8%, 9%, or even higher. These are the kind of growth spurts that China used to pull off back in its economic heyday. India's government is aiming for 7% growth. Yet, if you sneak a peek behind the curtain, you'll find the reality is a bit more modest, hovering around 6%. Not too shabby, but not exactly headline-grabbing either, right? Investors, bless their poor souls, are swarming to India like bees to honey, seeing its vast potential. But let's not kid ourselves, there are hurdles galore. We're talking infrastructural hiccups, regulatory mazes, and a bit of bureaucratic slow dancing that can sometimes feel like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. If India does manage to leapfrog over China, apart from giving Prime Minister Modi a reason to strut, what's in it for India? Well, it's a big deal, no doubt about it. It's not just about swelling national pride or getting one over a giant neighbor. This could reshuffle the deck in global economics, shifting power dynamics, and maybe even recalibrating how countries align globally. Imagine the headlines. India, the new growth champion, outpaces China. Now that would be something, wouldn't it? It's not just about the numbers. It's about what those numbers represent. Jobs, opportunities, and a seat at the high table of global economic leaders. The timing couldn't be more cinematic as voting kicks off in India in just a few weeks. The stakes are high, and the expectations are higher. Amidst all this, the world watches, waiting to see if this underdog can indeed pull off a stunning upset. China was like the Usain Bolt of global economies for decades, sprinting ahead and leaving others puffing in the dust. We're talking about a country that practically held the reins of global economic growth, sucking in investors from every corner of the planet. Investors? They swarmed to China like it was an all-you-can-eat buffet. Capital markets? Lit up by China's fireworks. Foreign companies? They couldn't resist the allure of the big, bustling Chinese market. Everyone pretty much bet their bottom dollar on China's never-ending growth saga. The assumption? China would eternally carry the torch of economic leadership. Well, until it didn't. After the last health crisis, China's growth engine started coughing. The once unstoppable economic juggernaut began showing signs of slowing down. And just like that, the global gaze shifted. Now, why would India, of all places, be pegged as the next growth champion? Think about it. A billion-plus population buzzing with potential, a burgeoning tech scene, and reforms that could make even the most rigid bureaucrat do a double take. India is not just playing catch-up, it's gearing up to potentially sprint ahead. With China's growth narrative hitting a snag, the global investor community is on the hunt for the next big hit. And India, with its untapped markets and digital revolutions, is looking pretty darn attractive. It's like switching channels from an old classic to a promising new show. Can India deliver? That's the trillion-dollar question. You see, India is expected to balloon up to 1.7 billion souls by 2064. India is turning heads and raising eyebrows, especially in China where the population party is starting to wind down. By century's end, China might dip below the billion mark. Now that's a drop worth noting. China's got an aging problem that could put a serious dent in its economy. No more innovation juice? That's the fear. Meanwhile, India is bustling, zooming past the UK to snag the title of the world's 5th largest economy in 2022, with a GDP that's busting the $3 million mark. And guess what? India's demographic dynamite might just be the ace up its sleeve, or it could be a damp squib. Time will tell. Flashback to 1950, and China was the big boss with over 550 million people. Fast forward to 2023, and India's caught up, each boasting populations over 1.4 billion. That's like 36% of all the humans hanging out in these two countries. India's youth squad, making up 40% under 25 years, is ready to hustle. The median age? A spry 28, compared to the more seasoned 38 and 39 in US and China. So with 1 in 5 workers worldwide being in India soon, the pressure's on to skill up this massive workforce. The next decade? It's not just about call centers anymore. India is set to become a hotspot for everything from remote healthcare to cutting-edge analytics. And let's not forget the Made in India tag that's starting to pop up everywhere, from mobile phones to machinery, thanks to companies like Apple and Samsung making a beeline for India. Apple's even planning to make a quarter of its iPhones there, up from a measly 5%. And with India pumping out $500 billion in goods in 2023 and aiming for $2 trillion in 2030, it's clear they're not just playing around. But let's not ignore the elephant in the room. While India's gearing up, China's worried about losing its manufacturing mojo. And the last Indian edge? Well, its labor force could surpass the billion mark soon. Something China can only dream of as it grapples with an aging population faster than even Japan. China is trying to tweak its policies to keep up, but it's a tough race. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. India's got its own set of hurdles. Democratic delays, social squabbles, corruption, you name it. And with the world population hitting 8 billion, the big question is how sustainable this all is. Poverty's still a heavyweight contender, and while India has made strides, there's a long road ahead to lift everyone up. If India surpasses China, we're talking about a shift in the gravity of economic power. Imagine a world where India isn't just a back-office powerhouse, but the main stage for global economic power. What do you think? Will India catch up? Or is China still too far ahead? Let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more.